that no airplanes are landing. And we thought the airplane pilots probably didn't know what was going on with the what that thing was. If I'd been a UFO person then, I would have tried to find out more from the airport and see if anybody had anything, but they didn't have the internet back then, and I wasn't a UFO investigator, and so I didn't do a good job of investigating. But anyway, we decided we didn't know what direction the object would take, and we wanted to try to follow it and figure out what it was. And we were heading south, and we decided, and we'd been following it south, but it was kind of a little bit north of us after that. And so we decided to turn the car around at the intersection, the next intersection. So we got onto the freeway. This truck driver got right behind me, right on my bumper, and chased me. I thought we were going to get killed. I couldn't get rid of him. I switched lanes, I slowed down, I speeded up, and everything else, and he just stayed right on my bumper. He was shining his bright lights in my mirror, and I was blinded, and I thought we were going to crash or get killed. So after some chasing for a while down the freeway, I decided to try to swerve off the freeway from the left-hand lane so he wouldn't suspect I was going to swerve and get to an intersection and swerve. And this was a really bad thing to do, because if somebody was coming faster on the right-hand lane, we would probably crash and get killed. And so I was going as fast as the car would go right then, and he was right behind me on my bumper. And so I swerved, and we got off the freeway and survived. And I turned around and started back. But when I got to about the same place, which was east of the airport, the thing was still circling, but then it took off in the northwest. And so I followed it back up the freeway, and the ball of light was there, and the inside of the car turned green again. And so then we followed it, and we finally wound up on this real old beat-up road with, it was gravel with potholes and everything, and houses a long ways away, and so narrow you couldn't even turn around. And it was just going a little bit faster than my car would go. And so I finally had to turn around, and we still couldn't find a motel, and so I headed back to New Jersey. We got back about 6 o'clock in the morning. We might have had missing time. Bud Hopkins interviewed both of us and had me do a timetable. We had forgotten our watches, both of us, but I kind of made a timetable. We might have had missing time. But anyway, we got back to her dorm and called our parents and told her roommates, who didn't believe us, and slept for a while. And then I was supposed to pick up these two coworkers, but they never showed up, and I waited all afternoon, which I didn't want to do. I wanted to get started back, and finally I started back and returned to Washington, D.C. And then I had a poltergeist experience. So that was the adventures we had, another sighting we had.
Right. What I was talking about was when you thought you were inside the ball of lightning. Is the experience.
Oh, okay.
We talked about your on the last show you had. We talked about your abduction or your sightings. This particular one, but we never got a chance to talk about it when you were inside. What you thought was inside the ball of lightning, which I think is a mind type thing. I think it has to do with quantum physics and time and everything else. Is why I was wanting you to talk about it a little.
Okay. This one I was talking about was kind of funny too, though, because of the lights in the car and the lights shining down on us.
Oh yeah. Well, the truck driver is kind of scary. I mean, what? You know?
Yeah. And we didn't know. I mean, I still don't know whether he was a real person or whether he had something to do with the UFOs, and I suspect he had something to do with the UFOs because we saw him during a close encounter, and he was very threatening. But inside the lightning ball, what happened was that I was in Texas, and I was sort of on top of a volcano. There was it was in a place where there were extinct volcanoes, and on one side of us there was a big volcanic extinct volcano with an uplift in the middle and everything. And on the other side there was this real big cauldron. And Marfa, which is famous for balls of light or maybe UFO sightings, was on the other side of the house. And it was a really interesting house. It was up in the air on top of the crest between these two volcanic formations. And I had my camera going, my video camera going, which was really handy. And there was a cell tower about 150 feet away with guy wires. Well, I was standing there and I was taking pictures of the volcano, a video, and suddenly there was this bright lightning bolt that came down and landed right beside me. It was real close to me horizontally, but I was on a deck, a wooden deck, about 15 feet off the ground, and it landed about, if I'd been on the ground maybe 3 or 4 feet away from me, it was right beside me with a loud noise and very, very bright, and it looked like I was just encircled by white light, like a big circle or sphere around me or something, around where it landed, with my camera going. And so I thought I must have got a picture of the lightning bolt because I kind of saw it, and then everything just lit up in white. And then the electricity went off and the fire alarm went off. Well, I was blinded for a while because it was so bright and I couldn't hear anything. But I went in the house, and when I could finally see again, I replayed the video, and all I could see in it was white. And I was just totally disappointed because I thought, oh, I saw that lightning bolt, and I should have photographed it, but all I had was white. And then, so I was real disappointed, but later I came home and put it on my computer and slowed the whole thing down. And what the video took a picture of, it took a picture of, it was just taking the normal picture of the volcano. Suddenly everything turned white, and you could hear the thunder at the same time as the lightning, so it was right on top of me. And then everything turned white. But what was really interesting is that the camera got something I didn't even get. And it must have been able to photograph while I was still blinded. But after everything turned white, well, then you could see a big short of electricity, like really big, going right up a guy wire from the cell tower, which was quite a ways away. And that was right after the whiteness. And so, and then after that, you could hear the fire alarm going off. And so it was really interesting because it kind of showed what happens when lightning hits, but it was pretty amazing because the tower was, the guy wire was maybe 120 feet away from me, and it was there was all this white on the in the video, and then you could see this real big short going up the guy wire. The guy wire was big, heavy wire, and you could see just the shorts going up it to the top. And so it had to come from my direction because just when the guy wire close to me was lit up and the rest of them weren't. At first I thought it hit the tower, but then I'd seen it hit right beside me, and then I realized that it had gone to the ground. The electricity had gone to the ground to the guy wire. And so there must have been a huge amount of electricity to be able to sort up the big, thick guy wire. and then you could hear, after that, you could hear the fire alarm go off. And so it was a pretty interesting sequence of events. And I looked up lightning bolts because I was beginning to wonder then if all the white I saw might have been a lightning bolt. And it could have been. I might have been inside a lightning bolt. And they can be big things, and they don't necessarily have to move. Some of the literature said they can be as big as a truck. And that's sort of what I saw, was a big white thing around me when the lightning hit, and then there was this big white thing. And that's what the video captured too. And then I got the electricity sorting up the guy wire, which just showed how strong the lightning was. And I put it on YouTube too. So
well, see, that's kind of what interests me, because when lightning hits, it goes to ground. It doesn't go back up a wire. So I thought there's got to be something more to this. When it happened, it only happened in milliseconds, right? It was real fast, right?
Yeah. Uh-huh.
And so you didn't experience any kind of time loss or anything like that then?
No, because I got the whole thing on film. I mean, right. I didn't turn the camera off while it was going on. I got the whole thing right while I was filming it.
Now, have you noticed anything different in your, about you since this has happened? I mean, are you more intuitive or anything like that, maybe?
No. I was blinded for a while, and my ears were just ringing for I don't know how long because it was so loud and bright. But I didn't notice anything else. It surprised me that I didn't feel electricity, but I think the patio I was on was above ground, and its pillars or stakes or whatever you call them, posts, were in.
Yeah, you said you're on wood too.
Yeah, it was an insulator, so I think that's why I didn't feel anything.
Yeah, now I've had lightning strike within 30 feet of me, and I'll tell you what,
wow.
All the hair on your body stands up, and it's very frightening.
Yeah, I've had it hit really close to me too, where I was in a kitchen with my hands on the faucet, and it hit right outside the window, and boy, I got a good shock from that. But I didn't feel anything.
You're lucky it didn't kill you.
I know, because I was
water and no pipes in that,
Uh-huh.
Okay. Janet and I are back. I was wanting to talk a little bit about parapsychology with Dr. Scott. I'd like to tell you that Dr. Scott, parapsychology, and because you've been investigated with your sister, I guess, when you were did transpersonal psychology or past life regression, or just John Mack may have just talked to you about your sighting. So one thing I'd like to describe and get a definite understanding with you with a scientific mind, and hadn't gone through Lowery Air Force Base, Janet Carolesson is, you've been on her show, and she's here. She's very good at helping us put the pieces together. So, Janet, would you like to say hi to Dr. Scott, and we can get into some of these parapsychology and psychology philosophy type of questions?
Hi. Yeah. Oh,
hi.
Can you hear me? Hi, can you hear me?
Yeah. Nice to talk to you again.
Yeah, good to hear you speaking. I've been listening here very quietly. So I'm not sure where you want to take the show next, TJ, because I missed the first part.
Okay,
so,
let me give you both.
Tell me where you want to go. Yeah.
Let me give you a little briefing. I'm into the consciousness and neuroscience, I guess one might say, and phenomenology, which is separate from the stuff John Mack did, I guess, because we're learning that when Janet and I was in Project Stargate in, I guess, like a stepchild or down 5 below Ed May, people, unless they were working directly on the beginning, they may not know that there were other Stargate branches branching off because they were not funded after a certain amount. So with that briefing about Project Stargate, basically how the extraterrestrials picked some of us to have Why do they pick us?